Hello everyone and welcome back to the next video on this channel. My name is Peps and I welcome you to a special breaking news episode here on this channel as we will be talking about the departure of Evil from New Japan Pro Wrestling. Evil has been a long-standing member of the company and has been a young lion, has been a former IWGP Heavyweight Champion and has now officially announced that he's leaving the company after being with New Japan for nearly 15 years. In this video, I quickly want to talk about what this means for New Japan, what Evil's future holds, and a little bit talk about Evil in general. With that, I would say we jump straight into the video. Evil has been a always discussed wrestler in the international fandom. Ever since he has joined the House of Torture, he has been getting mixed reactions. There have been a crowd, especially in Japan, but also internationally, that really like Evil and how he wrestled. But there was also always been the side that thinks the House of Torture stick isn't good. I personally see myself in the middle, in between that. Evil has been always a wrestler that has been entertaining to me, especially in his LIJ days, where he was really the king of darkness and has been wrestling with Sonata in this tag team and the six-man tags with Naito and his really enjoyable matches that he had for pretty much every belt in the company. I always thought that Evil was a pretty good worker. In 2020, New Japan then decided to turn him a heel. He had this big moment after winning the New Japan Cup where he turned on Tetsuya Naito to join the Bullet Club. And then, of course, went on to win the IWGP Heavyweight as well as the IWGP Intercontinental title at Dominion in Osaka, Johor. He defended it once against Hiromu Takahashi in Nagoya, which was a really, really strong match. And then lost it in Chingu at the Summer Struggle show back to Tetsuya Naito before the G1 Climax that year. And ever since, he has been in this weird heelish faction in the House of Torture, in the sub-faction, and that became the House of Torture. And later in 2021, when Sho joined the whole thing, with him, Yujiro Takahashi, Dick Togo, Sho, pretty much being the core members at first, but also the House of Torture got like really big over time, with Ren Narita joining the fold, Sonata, Doki, Don Fowler, Jason Owens, and even Jack Perry, which was a weird time looking back, to be completely honest. And Evil, ever since he has turned heel, jumped from being a solid mid-card player to a wrestler that has been pretty much all over the card. You can be sure whenever Evil was anywhere near, when the Big Show was coming, Evil was going to be anywhere near, not always the main event, but always near the top end of the card. Doesn't matter if it's the Never Openweight title, which he has won 4 times, if it's the tag team titles, if it's the heavyweight world title, if it's the secondary belt. It was always feel like, okay, Evil has always a spot up the card if it's about Dominion, if it's about Wrestle Kingdom. And he has earned that by loyalty, by being over with a part of the Japanese crowd that really, really like him and really buy his merch and all of that, and by his smart wrestling IQ and how to play his role. The House of Torture stick is not going to be something for anyone. This is always going to be the case with interference factions that are going to be all over the shows, especially like House of Torture. I still think that Evil had a lot of matches that I really enjoyed in this House of Torture stick. The one against Aaron Wolf, which we'll come to a bit later, was really enjoyable. The one against Yujiro Takahashi at the Purge Night of Torture show is one of his favorites that he had. The G1 finals against Konosuke Takeshita. There are so many matches, I would say, that I really enjoyed Evil in his House of Torture setting. Of course, he isn't the work rate specialist that he was in his prime, so to speak, as a work rate wrestler in 2019, 2018, where he had this great G1 run in 2019 and this great G1 run in 2018 with the matches against the likes of Okada. I really enjoyed his matches against, like, his tag team matches, where he and Sonata, for example, faced off against the Young Bucks with IWGP Tag Team titles in 2018, I believe it was, at the San Francisco show, where Kenny Omega defended the belt against Cody Rhodes, and Juice Robinson had this great match against Jay White. Back to the point, Evil has always been a really good worker, hidden by a House of Torture match style that is just overdone. I think we can say it after 5 years that the average House of Torture match is not going to land with the majority of international fans, as well as with the fans in the audience. Like, they have, as I said, half the fan base of Torture that is, but always the matches feel flat. Still, Evil has been a wrestler that works really the best in the big match setting. I think his G1 final showed that. I think his last two Wrestle Kingdom matches against Aaron Wolf and Hiroshi Tanahashi showed that when you put Evil in a mid-card spot on a big show, there's a good chance that it hits. But there's also a chance, and this is the problem with the House of Torture gimmick, that it doesn't hit. And that sometimes happens. I think a big one there is the match against Tomohiro Ishii at Wrestle Kingdom in 2022 for the Never Openweight title. Was like really a bad match, as well as the flat match that he had against David Finlay at Dominion in the dark color chain match. That also is part of what Evil is. And looking back to it, to talk a little bit about Evil leaving from a pure product standpoint, from a pure in-ring perspective, might be somewhat of a good thing. Not because Evil is bad, don't get me wrong, but I think that New Japan, and especially the House of Torture, need kind of a shakeup of the same heelish, very good heelish guy being in the same spots and having sometimes really bad outings in that specific gimmick. And I think that alone from that perspective, it's good that he's leaving, but also from his perspective, I think it's good because he kind of needed something new. And if they don't want to turn a babyface, I think him just leaving a company and searching something new in a different company could help him get to the next level where he isn't stuck in this kind of situation that he is in New Japan Pro Wrestling. What does this mean for New Japan, though, that he's leaving? And I think a big part on screen, at least, is a shakeup of House of Torture could be needed. Because if we look at the House of Torture right now, post-Evil, and with Sonata being on hiatus for the next couple of months, if not year, if he's even staying with the promotion, we don't know. We have Dick Togo, Yuji Takahashi, Ren Narita, Don Fale, and Chase Owens, together with Sho, Yoshinobu Kanemaru, and Doki. Outside of Ren Narita, in the heavyweight scene, you pretty much have low-card comedy geeks. With the juniors, you have, with Sho and Doki, a former IWGP heavyweight, junior heavyweight champion, and the current IWGP junior heavyweight champion. So I think they're set there pretty well. But I think it's time to reshuffle and rebrand the House of Torture. If you think about House of Torture, you think about Evil. He is the guy, regardless of what they're trying to achieve with the House of Torture, because Ren Narita hasn't been established well enough yet as a heavyweight to really take over this leader role directly. So personally, I would either completely kill it and do something else with every character, or what I think should happen, because you need a heel faction in New Japan Pro Wrestling with some Japanese talent in it, I would rebrand it. I would give it a new name and make Ren Narita the top guy in the stable. And that is pretty much, in my opinion, at least the easiest way how to deal with an Evil departure on screen. Because I think Ren Narita not only has the advantage, of course, that he's young, but he's also not completely burned out in the sense of, okay, we have seen everything he can do pretty much. Like, Evil has reached the top. He has pretty much won all the belts 755 times. With Ren Narita, is the level there is the way that he can get to a next step. And I think a rebranded House of Torture with a new name, maybe new colors, maybe some new members, and a new format of how they lay out their matches could help especially Ren Narita to make the next level, but also kill the House of Torture and evolve it a little bit, because I think that is right now needed, as similar to LIJ, with it being Naito's baby, so to speak, and it ending, it makes sense because Naito's not there anymore. I think it also makes sense with Evil and House of Torture. In the Backstage perspective, I think it's now known that Evil is someone that has been really influential backstage, and he has been rumored to train not only the Young Lions but also Evan Wolf, which is why he was his opponent at Wrestle Kingdom as his debut opponent. You also can see that, if you don't believe it, just it's worth saying, if you pay attention to the ringside things during the House of Torture matches, and especially you look at Yucho Takahashi, who's blatantly, obviously communicating to the Young Lions at points and pretty much giving them info, what to do, where to talk about, whatever, right? And it's so obvious to me that they have a pretty much big say in the training. And I think, while it's of course a big loss that likely one of the trainers of New Japan Pro Wrestling is leaving, I think that you can always find a way to replace that. Doesn't need to be someone big, I don't know. I think that Ren Narita, as we have talked about, of course, as this House of Torture guy, but also Yoda Tsuchi, who both feel like the biggest evil guys in the roster, in my opinion at least. It definitely, they could be the ones taking the charge here and make the next step, which would help New Japan, that the young guys get more not only obligation but also more power backstage, which would continue the rise of the young guys in this company. And I think Ren Narita, as someone who has a really smart in-ring IQ, in my opinion, together with Yoda Tsuji and Yuji Takahashi, and whoever's helping anyways, could help fill this hole that Evil is having backstage. Well, the Evil is leaving backstage. And I think it could help New Japan get to into new generation. I think that should be the goal in 2026. And speaking, of course, of Evil, him leaving like that with pretty much no angle and no send-off is kind of weird. You would imagine that if they have known before that, they would have done some kind of angle. Like, it has been said before on Twitter. It's weird that there was no angle for the top heel dipping. Like, no one is dragging out Evil out of the Hurricane, no nothing. Like, Evil has been such an essential part of the company for almost 6 years that you would think the least New Japan could do is booking a big angle where he gets his head shaved or something after all his head teases, or get just beat brutally by his comrades after he lost to Evan Wolf. But instead, his send-off was, okay, he's ending Hurricane together with Doki, and with Doki being the future. But this also kind of speaks for me that, in my opinion at least, that New Japan had no clue here that Evil was leaving. It came to a shock to them as well, because it was a shock to me, and I think it was a shock to anyone when this news came out, that he is going to leave the company. And it tells you once again that New Japan, heading out of Wrestle Kingdom, especially at New Year's Dash, has sometimes no clue what their roster is going to look like in the future. And that is a big, big problem, in my opinion, at least. And I think that is one of the key examples for that. Of course, the big one is Okada. When Okada left, they seemingly had no clue that he's going to leave. He was six-man tag team champion pretty much. He went over at Wrestle Kingdom before that against Bryan Danielson, and he didn't pretty much elevate anyone. Here, at least, Evil went out the right way. He maybe haven't told them before that. I don't have the feeling he gave him his notice before Wrestle Kingdom. But he wrestled against Evan Wolf in Evan Wolf's debut match, and I think he made him look so strong and bumped for him, pretty much geeked out his entire stable to make Evan Wolf look good. And it just shows you how loyal Evil is to the company, that he goes out the right way, does pretty much what you expect him to do, and lays down, makes the new guy, the future of the company, look good. And I think that is exactly, in my opinion, what they tell him when he's departing should be doing. Yes, he maybe haven't given his notice as early that they could have reacted with an angle, but also I would imagine that they would have had the chance to do it at the Correctional World Show but they just decided not to. That's also a big possibility because it's New Japan Pro Wrestling, right? So there's that. For his future and also the future of the company, we have heard that Evil is leaving the company a couple of days before, because the Super J cast reported that on their Discord, that Evil is done with New Japan and is going to join WWE in the future. And I think that it's an interesting move for him, because I have no clue what Evil in WWE is going to look like. Anyone can tell me what he is going to do in WWE? He feels like the most non-WWE wrestler to join WWE ever since Hideki Suzuki, which was also, looking back, insane. My guess from further away, with having no clue what their idea is, he likely wants to be with Io Shirai. They are at least clearly very good fans, because Evil has been in America a couple of times the last couple of years, meeting up with her and supporting her. He was at last 3 WrestleManias, I believe. And he was also over doing Sumi Sakai's retirement match and everything like that, and met up with her there. So I think that is a part of the reason why he wants to go there. And I think it also, from WWE's perspective, if you can sign someone that makes Io Shirai happy and makes her stay, I think you should automatically sign him and think like, okay, makes sense. For him also, I think a big part of it was Naito's departure last year, because if we look at it, and if we take the Super J-Cast report once again, it's really interesting to look at it. Sanada is actively out right now with whatever he's doing, for likely some kind of surgery. Maybe he's leaving the company. We don't know. Evil is leaving to join WWE. Shingo Takagi stated last year that he wants to wrestle more dates outside of New Japan, as well as him being written out right now. And Hiromu Takahashi has not only talked about wrestling more in Noah, he's actively teased to join the faction that Naito has in Noah, as well as Super J-Cast saying that he could be a name that is leaving the company by the end of the month, if not whenever he's done with New Japan Pro Wrestling, which could be as soon as February 11th after the match against the United Empire. To me, this is no coincidence anymore that all of the former LIJ members, excluding Yoda Tsuji, have been pretty much making it clear, okay, something is going on. Something is clearly going on, and I don't think they're that happy with how the Naito thing was dealt with. And I think that could be the last thing that made Evil jump to WWE. How his WWE run is going to go, I have no clue. There's a good chance he's going to be very successful, but there's also a chance he's just going to do nothing for 3 years, gets fired, and comes back to New Japan Pro Wrestling. I can't tell you at all. I can't tell you at all what's going to be the thing here. So for him, it's going to be a cool next step to see his options. I think everyone can be a winner in this situation, WWE, New Japan, and Evil, if all three of them play their cards right. I think that New Japan has the easiest way here, because they can just replace Evil backstage with younger guys, as well as on screen with Ren Narita getting the spot, but they also need to push Ren Narita like that to make it possible for that to happen. So that is kind of a thing, because they don't really push that Narita like that anymore, even though he has now the match against Aaron Wolf, but he's also losing that, so I don't know. WWE and Evil, it could work. I think from a private perspective, Evil is going to be very happy in WWE. I mean, he's going to earn more money than in New Japan Pro Wrestling. And also, there's a very good chance he doesn't need to wrestle much or try much. So it's going to be interesting, so to speak, what is going to happen with there. And with that, I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like, comment down below. Let me know what you think about Evil. How is he going to do in WWE? And with that, bye-bye.